Excellent, excellent. So yeah, first thing I wanted to ask you is like, Jack, uh, with over 30 years in the wine business and your family legacy being tied up to the founding of the city of Carmel, like what are some of the most significant changes you have seen in the industry, and how have you adapted?
Okay, that's a good question. I would say probably one of the most significant changes has come in the distribution models. When I started the winery back in 1994, the thing to do was go out and get distribution, and that's what you did. You and so I was in 15 states and 5 countries and selling wine in the best restaurants and stores all over the United States, all over Europe. I was traveling 100 to 150 days a year, making placements, doing dinners, doing tastings, really working that market. And it was fun. I was younger. It was fun. It was very tiring. Um, and I mean, the receptions you got were great. I mean, we were always working with wonderful people, but it was really more about the relationships you built. And and the distributors were there just to kind of facilitate that. And then later on, it turned much more into what are your discounts going to be? What's your programming going to be? If I sell your wine, what are you going to give me, kind of thing. And it just totally turned me off of the distribution business. I mean, I still have a few distributors, very small, that are my good friends that we work with, and they're great. But for the most part, a lot of these smaller distributors were taken over by the large corporations, and it got to be much less personable and personal, and more about dollars and how much discounting and how much more you can squeeze. And that just wasn't for me or my products. So I kind of gave up distribution and went direct to consumer, built my wine tasting room in Carmel, as you know, the first wine tasting room there. And frankly, we do more business now than we ever had, in terms of, not necessarily in terms of volume, because you can only get a certain amount of people through your tasting room, but certainly in amount of dollars. We do way more. So and I'm also able to keep the prices a lot more reasonable, because if you're selling to a distributor at 50 cents on the dollar, then doing all the sales and traveling and all of that, you got to count all that in. But if you're selling direct to consumer, you can keep your prices a lot more reasonable and pass on those savings to the consumer. So I'd say that's probably one of the more significant changes I've seen in the industry.
Yeah, okay, so cutting the middleman and basically you enjoying the advantage of first taking care of your business, like people direct person to person, and offering better
Better
quality
service,
service and
certainly
price.
better service, great quality, great pricing. Now, of course, you can't do that model entirely if you're a massive winery. You're doing 20, 30, 40,000 cases of wine or more, in the hundreds of thousands, some in the millions. Of course, you must be in the distribution channel heavily, or at least a good part. And because, we can only sell so much wine out of a tasting room and out of your mailing list and your club members. So I'm not saying it's not to do it, and other wineries have to make their decision. It was just, for me, I would rather stay smaller, boutique, art focused, handmade product, focused entirely on quality and not on quantity. And that works for me.